Hey, this is Aaron Shaw with another edition of Coach's Corner. This is our weekly newsletter on some tips and tricks to stay as healthy and active as possible, and that includes overcoming injury. And today I'm coming to you a little bit less than 24 hours after injuring myself exercising. So it happens. I think I've been doing this Coach's Corner for a year now, and since I started, I think I've done a little video on shoulder pain and like a little bit of shoulder tendonitis. I know I've done one on elbow tendonitis, both of which I did because at the time I was suffering from that. Both of those were caused from me exercising. And I'm adding another one, third time's the charm. This time it is my wrist. So I talked to you about some simple ways to modify exercises so you can still be active while dealing with wrist pain. So specifically, this happened yesterday, and the exercise I was doing was a lateral raise. So I had dumbbells in my hands like this. I'm not going to do it on my left side because that's the side that I hurt, and bringing the weights up to the side. So that exercise is great for building shoulder strength. It actually can help build core strength as well because you got to stabilize your core. But there are tendons on this kind of your small finger side of the wrist, kind of run this big bony part. So we've talked before about aches and pains and the soreness after exercising, and if that is what we would call delayed onset muscle soreness. So this is soreness that can happen in a muscle within 24, maybe 48 hours of discomfort after having a workout. So that's not uncommon. It's a little bit of a tissue overload. You got to be careful about that. Once some discomfort is closer to a joint as opposed to muscle, so you have muscles in your forearms, but your forearm, I would just say, is not your elbow and not your wrist, but the points in between. This is where you would get muscle soreness. My soreness and my pain is right at right around the joint, and so that's more of a red flag that it's actually a tendon that's irritated or a tendon that is inflamed, tendonitis. So when I was doing this exercise yesterday, felt no pain at all. It was quite challenging, the exercise I was doing, and I suppose in a full disclosure, it's an exercise that I don't do very often, that specific movement, and I was going pretty heavy for me, and felt fine doing it. Felt like I had a good workout, and probably within 2-3 hours, my wrist was getting progressively more and more sore, and I knew exactly what it was. And I don't mean just my poor judgment, but I know exactly what tendon this is. So the name is called the extensor carpi ulnaris, the ECU. And so what this tendon does is it stabilizes your wrist in a straight position, and if you really activated it, it'll actually help bring your wrist up. So with a weight in my hand, which I'll demonstrate on this side, as I was going out to the side, that tendon, along with a couple others, are really working to make sure that the weight doesn't flop over. And so I overloaded it. This means that I'm not going to be able to, even holding this, which feels perfectly fine on this side, there's no way I can do it on this side. I can hold it in this direction, which brings us to ways to modify some movements if you have discomfort on your small finger side of your wrist. So what I can do is lift things with kind of like you're holding a glass of water. So thumbs up towards, up towards the top. What I can't do is take the same weight and hold it this way, because that activates that tendon. So if you find that you have discomfort on the small finger side of your wrist, instead of lifting things with palm down, you can modify it or try to modify it by going, again, almost like you're holding a beer mug perhaps, and going through the same range of motion for shoulder exercises in this case. You may also be able to get away with going palm up and doing perhaps a bicep curl. This may be a little bit iffy, and for mine, which I can tell you is doesn't like that very much. And the reason for that is the tendon, when you rotate all the way over so your palm up, that tendon on the small finger side of your wrist really kind of has to rotate quite a bit. So I can go very light perhaps, but what this means is no good deed goes unpunished. Trying to exercise, trying to be healthy, overloaded a tendon, it's irritated. I'm gonna not do that exercise until it feels better for sure. Today happens to be a day where I'm not gonna do anything really significant with my wrist anyhow, which is good because I wouldn't be able to. So I'm gonna need to give it a day's rest. I'll check it out probably the next day or so, see if there's something I can do with modifications to how I'm exercising, with modifications on how I pick things up, and being thoughtful through the day that I don't just ignore the small little aches and pains, because every little twinge that happens is going to slow the healing process. It may not be profoundly uncomfortable, but I don't want my body to try to heal a little bit and then I just irritate it again. So I would need to modify how I pick things up, how I carry, be thoughtful about that. Stay tuned. This should, fingers crossed, this should go away within, today's Friday as I'm recording this, probably the next 48 hours. It should feel fine with regular activity, and then I'll kind of reassess the beginning of the week. If it's still uncomfortable, I'm just gonna have to keep modifying and waiting. Worst case scenario, I know a good hand therapist, so I will put a brace on it and give it some extra support, which is always an option as well with wrist discomfort. So with that, do as I say, not as I do. That's the I suppose the call to action for this video. Be careful about overloading, going heavy, or doing a whole bunch of repetitions on certain movements that you don't do normally. Even with exercises that you may be strengthening a muscle group that you strengthen often. As I work on my shoulders several days a week, but I don't always go out to that particular exercise. And so be thoughtful about what you do, listen to your body. The discomfort and soreness that's around a muscle, like kind of a muscle belly, less of a concern. Once you have discomfort right around a joint, that's typically a tendon, and that needs some extra TLC. You don't push through that, you can't ignore that, and you have to be like me, have some humble pie, take it easy for a couple of days and reassess. So if you have any questions about aches or pains that you have, if you're not really sure if you should push forward or back off or hold off, please reply to this video, leave a comment, let me know. I'm happy to help you with that. And until then, be careful and stay active.